La 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 la. Leonie Dawson, she refuses to be categorized. Friends, this is just me, not in the studio, not with beloved Maddie, just by myself. I have something to share with you, and so I am just going old school with this. Hello, beautiful friend. So, I have a bit of a personal sharing that I wanted to share with you. It's probably just going to be one of those longer, ye old fashioned, meandering style ones, a diary style of what I'm up to and what I'm thinking and feeling, all those good things. For me, to be honest, 2024 is nothing like I thought it was going to be. All the goals and plans that I had in a lot of ways are no longer right for me for right now. And instead, I'm in this process of creating a new vision, one that feels really unexpected and surprising. And I think if I had to give up on those goals like this last year, it would probably have made a pretty big impact on my self esteem because last year was the first time that I actually struggled with self esteem. And what a blessing to have gotten 40 years in life without really um, feeling impacts to my self esteem. So last year was definitely an anomaly. And for a little while there, I was really hard on myself in feeling like I'd made mistakes in some of my decisions in the past. And thankfully, my two assistants had a little bit of an intervention, and they were like, "Hey, you're like spiraling. What do you need to do?" And I ended up going back to doing regular kinesiology work with my darling friend and mentor Kerry Rowett from Awaken Kinesiology, and that helped enormously. And I remember Kerry saying to me, instead of telling yourself the story that this means that you can't trust your own decisions, what if you recognize that you made good decisions based on the information that you had at the time? And then when new information comes to light, you make a different decision. You can't control what other people do. You can't magically intuit how they're going to behave in the future. You can only make decisions based on the information that you have right now. Powerful, right? So powerful. And I'm so grateful for the work that we've done together. And so, even though this first half of the year has been intense for me, my inside self feels mostly unrattled, thankfully. All I'm doing is seeing what new information life is presenting to me and working with that instead. There has been moments in the past 6 months or so where I felt like a professional firefighter, where so much of my time and my energy is needed to put out the latest fire. And so often, what is needed is love and boundaries and clarity. And I don't like to, vague blog, but I also can't share many parts of exactly what's been happening because it's life stuff for me and they involve other people. And I don't like to write other people's stories for them. My business has been a joyful, just rolling along, doing its magical thing. And I'm very, very grateful. It's just the life stuff that's been a lot. It's been a lot on many fronts with extended family difficulties and school challenges for both my kids. And being middle aged is a lot. Like the sandwich generation era has sandwiched hard for me. And all of that's kind of been a big shakeup in terms of us reevaluating where we are now and what's needed next. And for those who've been around these parts for a while, you might know where this might be heading because, yes, looks like we're moving again. We have been here on the Sunshine Coast for 6 years now, and I feel so, so grateful for our time here. I've met some beautiful humans, especially my local business Goddess Circle with Tash Corbin, Bridget Esselmont, Amanda Rootsey, Maddie Beaufort, Castella, and Claire O'Reilly as well. And I will eternally cackle when I think about like my two Scorpio Fest weekends away with my beloved girlfriends. I'm grateful that I also got to homeschool here for a wee while with its incredible homeschooling community, and that my kids got to experience 4 years of alternative schooling that they really adored. And I'm very grateful for that. I am also grateful that my kids really got to have time with their grandparents here, both my dad and my husband's parents as well. And one of the big reasons we moved here was for them to be able to connect more with their ancestors. And I feel like we've been able to do that for them. And I feel very grateful for that. I've also really adored getting to know this land, the magic of its rivers and the long swathes of beaches and tea trees and the black cockatoos. I feel enormously lucky that we got to live through the pandemic here in the safe bubble that Queensland provided, and that we did it while being able to live on an acreage. In my heart, I think I'm always going to remember the moment of during the pandemic. I went for a bike ride with my kids, and there was this enormous butterfly migration. Like I've never seen anything like it before. Millions of butterflies were dancing through the air, and it kept on coming for weeks. And I just remember riding down the road on a bicycle, and the road was empty, and these just flying in a flock of butterflies. While there was so much uncertainty and anxiety and grief emanating around the globe in those early days of the pandemic, that vast flock of butterflies and that one small bike ride with my little loves was one of the most exquisite things that I've ever borne witness to. When we moved here, we had younger kids. We had an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old. And our dream for us to be able to raise them on acreage with connection to their grandparents and to live like a sea change, tree change life with them. And it feels like we've been able to do that. And I'm so, so proud of us for making that happen. And now, just like that, in a split second and an eternity, we have older kids. Our 14-year-old has only 4 years left of school. Our youngest is now 10, and our vision for what's next is changing. We've been wondering for a while now what happens next after school for our eldest. And for all its beauty, a sea or tree change often doesn't always give young adults many options when it comes to further education or starting careers. For lots of families, they're happy to either work with what's available locally or for their kids to move to the big smoke for university or work. And I know when I was growing up in a rural location that moving away was the only option available to me. For us, though, we are a pretty close knit little bunch, and one of our highest values is family time and being connected with our kids. And I found myself feeling really jealous of friends who lived in locations where their kids could live at home if they wanted to while going to university or starting their careers. And with my business, we are location independent. We can live anywhere. So if we had the opportunity to be able to have more years with our kids as young adults, like why wouldn't we? So with all of that in mind, the answer was pretty clear to us that we were ready to move back to Canberra. This is going to be our third time moving to Canberra. It might not be biologically like our biologically born hometown, but it has definitely become one for us. It is hard to tell people about Canberra sometimes, probably because if you tell most Australians that you're wanting to move to Canberra from the Sunshine Coast, they think you are nuts. For most Australians, they think Canberra is cold or boring or both. And they're right about it being cold, of course. Like we Australians tend to be a largely cold adverse lot, with warmer weather being seen as like the gold standard for lifestyle. Whereas I happen to have a husband whose smile widens the closer it gets to 0 degrees. And I have one kid who clearly inherited his cold living genes. She's a kid who wishes that she could wear jumpers and jeans year round, who hates the beach and fantasizes about living in Finland. So for me and my other kid, however, we're just happy to be wherever we are. I'm always fascinated by like the public opinion of Canberra being boring. Here's this like beautifully planned city with less than 500,000 people that has some of the country's best cultural attractions. Some of my favorite places on earth are there. Where else can you spend a delightful day just meandering from the National Library of Australia to the National Gallery and the National Portrait Gallery? Like, I get such a little artsy nerd boner just thinking of it. And then, of course, there's the zoo and Questacon and Old Parliament House and Coddington Green and Gold Creek Village and Lanyon and all the other things. Some people adore the War Memorial, but it totally gives me the big sad, so I tend to skip that one. Socioeconomically, like, it's also like a very fascinating place too. Canberra has the most highly educated population in Australia. It also happens to be the most left-leaning state as well. It topped the nation in voting for same-sex marriage in 2018. Its chief minister of 10 years is the first and only Australian head of government to identify as LGBTQIA+. It is one of the top 5 most sustainable cities in the world, and it was the first city outside of Europe to achieve a 100% renewable energy supply. And it also happens to be the world's best at Wordle, the game, because that's really important too. That aside, there's this real nature magic of Canberra. I think 90% of the hiking I've done in my life has been there. Maybe it's because there are walking trails spread through most of the suburbs that wind around the hills and the sky. Maybe it's because Canberra has my beloved Tidbinbilla National Park, which is just a jewel of my heart and a long-term love. Maybe it's the soft sage hues of the alpine land set wild against cornflower blue skies. Or maybe, most of all, it's because the nature spirits feel so deeply kind and welcoming there. All of this and more. Maybe it's also because it's not friggin' hot most of the year, so it's always beautiful weather for hiking. I guess the thing with Canberra is that it's a peculiar kind of magic. It only enchants certain people, and the love story eludes others. And that's probably for the best, because otherwise it would be overrun with too many humans. For me, Canberra has always been a place that's felt soft and loving and kind to me and my love. Canberra has gifted us both so much. It also means returning to our community of dear friends who've become family after decades of love. I have complicated and sometimes strained relationships with my family of origin, but we have really good and easy and solid community with our Canberra folk, and it's going to be a really lovely homecoming to be nestled among them again. For our kids, Canberra also means lots of great options for finishing their schooling and doing university if that's what they're called to. It means lots of job opportunities and possibilities for them to start out as adults. Will it be our forever place? Like, I doubt it. I don't know. I doubt that about any place. If we want to move again, we totally will. There's still so many places to get to know and love. People often ask, with the amount of moving I do I love moving? And I don't love like the actual physical act of packing and unpacking, of course, but otherwise, yeah, I kind of do. I love getting to fall in love with a new home and explore it and get to experience the energy of and beauty of new areas. It's kind of like slow traveling. For years of restless unknowing, it bothered me that I didn't truly know where home was before realizing I just happen to have a really large one. My country is my home. My love story is with Australia, and I feel so damn blessed that we've been able to live and love so many parts of it over the years. From the rainforest wilderness of far north Queensland to the windswept glory of Tasmania and all the jewels between. I feel so lucky that with my business, we've been able to move when we've wanted and needed to. It's funny, like I've really hesitating sharing all of this because we haven't yet bought a house in Canberra. We haven't set the move date yet. Who knows what might happen? The wind may change. We might decide to stay here. We might decide somewhere else completely, and that's okay. For right now, the winds of change are pulling, and this is where it's looking to take us. I just want to say thank you, as always, for sharing this winding, stunning, wild journey with me. I can't wait to share what's next and what's unfolding with you. And I'm so deeply grateful to have path companions like you beside me. Da-na-na-na. That's the end of the show. Wasn't it a great show? I hope you loved it.